Stories you care about. WLBB, Carrollton, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3.
It is now 8:30. Good Friday morning. Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330, FM 106.3. I'm Colin Worthington, your host. Our guest this morning, one of four candidates running for the Ward-3 City Council seat here in Carrollton. Her name's Dawn Goodwin, and kind enough to join us this morning. And as she does wave to the camera, that reminds me, we are on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page this morning. Joel Brock behind the controls. Thanks to Michael Vincent pressing the buttons in the studio for us this morning as well. Again, Dawn Goodwin, our guest this morning, and thank you for coming by and introducing yourself. Well, do that for us. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What are you all about?
My name is Dawn Goodwin, as you know, running for one of four, running for Ward 3 Carrollton City Council. I'm an Emory grad. I'm a mother of three teenagers. I have lived in Carroll County for 20 years, raised my kids here, and Carrollton for the last 10. So I'm excited to be here. And, I think one of the things that really started this whole race for me was a few years ago, my family suffered a house fire that sent us scrambling for a place to live. As a single mom, I really didn't know what I was going to do. We lost almost everything. And as fate would have it, I found the right house at the right price just off the square. It was a poor neighborhood. It was a tiny house, but I was like, okay, let's just make this temporary. But that house and that neighborhood actually changed my life, changed my trajectory. It's part of why I'm here. I feel like, after raising my kids in the county and experiencing struggling with suburban sprawl where you don't have anywhere to walk, you don't have places to go, everything is car only. Suddenly I had walking access to the square, to parks, to the library. We could walk to dinner if we wanted to. We could bike to the Greenbelt and get all the way around town. The kids could take art classes at the center. So I was like, this is how you meet the needs of the average family, and how you raise our quality of life. And I was so excited that Carrollton had sort of created this vision for itself and wanted to be a part of it.
Well, that kind of sets up a stage for a question, one of the eventual questions. But quality of life, you've mentioned that a couple times. I've talked to you. I've heard that phrase a lot. The beautification project, that's something that a lot of people have talked about. The beautification project for Bankhead Highway.
Yes.
There's plans. There's unfortunately, there are some business owners who feel like they're going to be negatively impacted by the shrinking those lanes. About $4 million, I believe, is what they're saying that's going to cost right now. Do you believe that's an appropriate use for taxpayer money at this point? Yeah,
when you look at, so we're going to be out about $2 million, I think, out of our cash reserves for that project. But when you look at the overall investment that this is making in our city, I think it's well worth it. I don't think it's a rash use of city monies. I think it's smart use of city monies. And also, if you look at, they already did a corridor adjustment leading up to this portion. Like you remember when it used to be 4 lanes, and really tiny 4 lanes, and they reduced it down to 2 lanes and 1 turning lane, and that hasn't...
Over at Noonan Road, is that, yeah?
Yeah, going down Bankhead, and that hasn't caused any major problems for those businesses. In fact, traffic flow is better. No one's complaining that we want our lane back, and I don't think the businesses have suffered at all. So I don't foresee it. And whenever there's a change or something out of the ordinary, people get a little freaked out. But like we did with the Greenbelt, people thought this wasn't going to be a good use of funds, or why are we doing this? But as you can see, it's become one of our crown jewels. So.
The beautification project and change in the community will lead me to an article, I'd say, that you actually wrote this morning, very early this morning. It talked about, I'll tell you the opening line here. If your prosperity has been built on development, construction, engineering, and real estate, then let's face it, you're already well represented on the current city council. Right. I suppose you're trying to differentiate yourself from maybe some other candidates or from people on city council.
So I feel like, those are It's important industry expertise. Obviously, you need that on a city council. You have to do a lot of planning, zoning, and development, but you also need the lived experience of the resident. You need the perspective of the person who has to deal with the development and the changes, and also has some vision, not just about market forces, not just about, we need growth for growth's sake. You need to think about, how is this going to preserve our character? Like, what is our legacy? What is the impact on the average community, and how does this affect us as a whole? So, and also, how does this, our poverty rate is double the national average. Our median income is about $36,000, and I think we should have someone on the council who represents that perspective, those needs, and has the accessibility into those communities and lives in those communities. So that's really important to me.
Also, in what you wrote this morning, I go back to the guest we had yesterday. She had talked about housing, the importance of housing in our community. Didn't want to deal with apartments or anything like that. Talked about the square being a prime location. Yeah. However, I'm getting from what you wrote this morning, you don't think housing. We shouldn't have as much housing coming towards the square.
Well, it's about smart housing. It's about smart growth as opposed to just so. My concern is bringing the development patterns of the county, like bringing mini subdivisions into the downtown. I mean, I think that if I'm creating a headache for the city officials, they really shouldn't have. They should have slowed the development or listened to me at some of the city council meetings, because I didn't really want to make waves, but I started to watch one development. I mean, that Chandler development. I just wish there had been some.
It's about 15 houses or 15 residences, some apartments, some smaller homes.
I know we need housing, but can we only get one shot to preserve our downtown. So can we, if we're going to get rid of all the trees and all that, trees provide a sense of place. They provide shade. If you want to have a walking town, you got to have shade. I mean, we're in a record heat wave right now. Shade matters. It's an economic consideration if you want to draw people to live here. So preserve some of that historic feel. Don't just bring in mini subdivisions, and let's think about other ways we can meet the housing need. Once I came to the city council meeting to talk to the council about my feelings about this development, I was one of several well-spoken community members who had just, they didn't want it to stop altogether. They just wanted some small considerations. But while I was there, I realized, oh my goodness, there's one going in on Reese Street. There's a Cedar Street that's been approved. There's so many developments that are being, I felt were being rubber stamped. And I've seen development creep in through when I lived in Douglas County, I lived in Carroll County, and I just wanted us to exercise some caution and think, Carrollton has a history of thinking outside the box about development. We've done things differently. If you look at the square, that's a legacy. We've become something that other cities want to replicate. So let's continue that. Let's not just have growth for growth's sake. Let's think about the value to the city as far as it was just going to what are the property tax returns for these developments? How does it affect the everyday citizen? So I just want to bring that perspective to the city council. It's not just rubber stamp everything. And I want to find other people in the city who, do you feel the same way? And if so, support me. Let's bring this perspective to the council.
Dawn Goodwin, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. She's one of 4 candidates running for one of 3 challenging Jim Waters, who's the current city councilman representing Ward 3 in the city of Carrollton. The municipal elections this time around, there's about 15 people seeking offices. So it's a lot. A lot of people interested into representing Carrollton in some form or fashion. And a lot of it's not always like that. So we see a lot of the guys not even challenged. A lot of the candidates not even challenged. So this year there's a lot of them. And I do wonder, the people who are running this time, I mean, they seem passionate about what they're speaking. If they don't succeed here, if they don't, unseat the incumbent, will they be as passionate next year? Will they continue efforts to be a part of the city and to lead with their ideas? Can you say that about yourself? I mean, I know you attended that last meeting and you were vocal on several things, but is that something that, that'd be nice to see people do that, every meeting. I know maybe city council would enjoy the extra half hour may add to their meeting, but it would be interesting to see people participating that much.
Right. Although sometimes I feel like city councils are kind of like democratic theater where the decisions have already been made behind closed doors. And, we have to, and a lot of times residents coming in we don't necessarily know the facts. We don't know how a city works. We don't know the considerations. We're not experts in planning and zoning and ordinances. But, I'm passionate about continuing to preserve the city character, and I I want to continue this for as long as I can. As long as if the city residents want to support me in this effort, then that gets me excited. I don't feel like such a loner. Mm-hmm. I would really be excited to partner with people in our city and innovative developers who want to come in and create a city unlike any other, which is what we have right now.
And I'm going to take a break here, Michael. Give me one last question here before we do get to that break. When people do, three people challenging Jim Waters, is there anything that you've seen in that representation that you can think of you didn't agree with, like maybe a vote he cast? Or was there ever an issue that you brought to him and maybe didn't feel like that was resolved? No,
I think, I think Jim Waters has done a fine job. My biggest issue was when I brought this issue before the council, this West Chandler development, he wasn't there, and we needed his vote. I needed him to represent me, and he wasn't there. So that kind of kicked me into gear. Like, well, if he's not going to be there, then maybe I should be there.
8:41, Don Goodwin, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. We'll take our first break and come back in with the second segment. Do want to remind you we are on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page, streaming live video this morning. So if you have a question or comment, feel free to post it up there, and we'll take a look at it during this break. And we'll come back with more with Don. After this, Community Voice brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy.
Oak Mountain Academy has offered a challenging college preparatory education for over 50 years. With over 500 graduates, we have maintained a 100% college acceptance rate. Over 90% of our students earn acceptance to their first choice of college or university, and over the past 5 years, our students have earned over $10 million in scholarship offers. Our students are creating a legacy. Come, be a part of our family and create your own legacy today. To learn more, visit us at oakmountain.us.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org. or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
(8:44). Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program, News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, also streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page this morning. You can see sitting across from me on the table here is Don Goodwin, one of three candidates challenging the incumbent Jim Waters for the Ward-3 City Council seat. I'm sure he's entertained this week. We did have Jim on the program Monday. Usama Ahmed was on Tuesday. Tina Shockley was on Thursday. And wrapping up the week focusing on Ward-3 today with Don. So, again, if you missed any of these programs dealing in the Ward-3 City Council race, they are all available on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page. Also, podcasts on our website at newstalk1330.com. Now, Don, when you did qualify for this race, listed under occupation is writer.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, yeah, so that's my, when I went to Emory, that was my major, and that was my strength. That's been my passion. And I've, for a while, I used to do freelance projects around for the city. I did something for Southwire's PR firm, and I've done grant writing for some of the local schools. But over the years, I've been able to build my business into something that can really support my whole family, and to the point where I have time to give back. My job as a writer is is communication and making complicated things simple for everyday people to understand. So I'm hoping I can bring that to bear at City Council. I can take some of our, because sometimes there's a lot of insider talk when it comes to local government. It's really hard to understand what's being talked about. I really want to demystify that and help communicate that this is our city. You know, if we think about the city as a family, this is our city. We need to be and to treat it as our home, as our family, and that requires making people understand how the city works and why they are stakeholders.
I did encourage viewers to post any questions or comments on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page. Jeannie Dollar has done so. She said, "Thank you for your efforts to participate in our city in a way that preserves the quality of life here. I agree that we have enough developers with their personal zoning agendas." And I do encourage anybody else who wants to put a question or comment up there.
Thanks, Jeannie.
News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. Trying to find current issues, relevant issues, dealing with the city of Carrollton right now. This past Monday, the city did approve to maintain the millage rate. That did lead to a collection of about $600,000 extra dollars from taxpayers. There's the argument there. It equates to about $25 a month extra, or maybe a year, $25 a year for each property owner who is affected. What do you consider when you're going to decide whether to raise taxes, raise the millage rate? What do you have to consider? What do you have to look at see what's going on? What would be what would lead you to accepting a tax increase?
Well, I like you said, this is the impact of this of the millage rate being maintained is not going to be not going to create too much of a financial hardship on property owners. And it's a relatively small windfall for the city, $600,000. So I really trust the city financial leadership to keep us in the black, and to I think they've been more than fiscally responsible. I think we're the envy of many surrounding governments as far as our ability to have a strong cash reserve and not go into debt. As far as would I have a tax increase going forward, if there was if a lot of talk of recession, it's kind of like wondering if we're going to get the flu. Nobody knows for a fact if we're going to have a recession or not. But of course, if we're in dire financial straits, that's no time to raise taxes. But again, I trust the city financial leadership that we have, which I think is stellar, and I would follow their lead because we are doing. We've done such a good job at keeping ourselves a tight ship. It's also providing services and amenities unlike any other around here. So I'd like to be a part of that, continue that.
The economy right now, we believe, is doing pretty well. I assume that would encourage some people to maybe branch out and start their own business, save a little extra money, and maybe want to follow their dream and start up a new business. I guess in consideration for maybe rezoning for a business, what would you look at to decide whether you'd be in favor of rezoning, which would decide whether that business can go on to the next step to become a business or kind of halt their plans? Yeah,
so part of what I'm passionate about is creating more of that texture of the downtown that we have, that, not just, sometimes I feel like we have two cities. We have the downtown, and then we have 27, which feels like a totally different type of community that's been zoned just in a completely different way. I think that's part of the beautification, is trying to extend some of that fine-grained town feel, for that, that it includes a space for smaller businesses, drives traffic to them, and makes people able to walk to them. That gets me excited, thinking about that kind of urban planning. So I guess that's what I would think in mind. I'd also look at, the property tax. Sometimes when you have these, when businesses come in that aren't local, they just, we don't necessarily get the value as a city from their being in our community. We have to look at, what is this business bringing to our community? I think we're topped up on chain stores and chain restaurants. I really get excited about businesses that have the flavor. Like my favorite place to eat is on the square because they're different. So I'm rambling, but that's really what gets me passionate about zoning, is thinking about how we can continue that unique feel.
Vaping and e-cigarettes have been in the news a lot. Seems like every day there's a story on that.
Right.
What if a small business wanted to start up a new vaping store in the city of Carrollton, and perhaps a zoning issue would be required, one that would normally seem feasible and okay? Would you, just based on the news reports, whether, I guess this will come to whether you believe it or not, how would you vote in favor? Would you, I guess, work to allow that to happen, a vaping store to open up in Carrollton?
I'm sort of concerned about, we have so many vaping stores, and I'm wondering how the health reports and the problems we're seeing in the news, I'm concerned about how that's going to affect their business. It's I've seen a couple of vaping stores that are side by side. We have so it's that's kind of an ongoing that's an ongoing issue. I don't know how that's going to play out. Will the latest health reports affect their business? I don't know. Sometimes when you make something illegal, it becomes even more popular. Right now it seems like we have a lot of vaping stores.
Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm looking at it just based on the stories of the health implications. I mean, would you be, I'm really concerned about this. I need to stand in the way of this opening up. And it's your perspective on, I guess, the free market. Right.
Well, again, it doesn't serve the city to approve businesses that are actively closing. So it really depends on how these health reports affect our existing vape businesses. Are they going to start to see a downturn? Are they going to find that this actually makes them more popular? So I guess that it's something I'll have to watch and keep an eye on.
There are discussions in cities too, as far as making it illegal even to smoke outside public buildings and city-owned properties and county-owned properties as well. Hasn't happened here locally yet, and I'm not aware of a discussion going on, but that is something to pay attention to, along with this the story of that. 8:53 right now. We're going to take our final break, come back with about 5 minutes, and let Dawn go over her platform for us one last time before we wrap up this morning's program. Community Voice, brought to you by Tanner Health System and Oak Mountain Academy here on News Talk 1330,
At
FM 106.3.
We're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
A well-rounded education includes much more than just academics. At Oak Mountain Academy, we encourage our students to find their niche in any of our 42 co-curricular opportunities. Over the past 5 years, we have brought home 5 state and 20 regional athletic titles. Our one-act play and literary teams continuously compete at the region and state level, and our academic teams bring home first place more than not. We are warriors creating legacies. To learn more, visit oakmountain.us.
8:55. Welcome back to the WLBB Community Voice program here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3, and this morning streaming live on the News Talk 1330 WLBB Facebook page. You can see myself, Colin Worthington, and our guest this morning, Dawn Goodwin. She is one of 4 candidates seeking the Ward-3 City Council seat, which will begin in the year 2020, January. Election day is November the 5th, and early election will take place about 3 weeks before that. Again, Don Goodwin, our guest this morning. We do have another question on Facebook. This one coming from April McCown. She said, what's more important for our city right now, building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing, expanding, better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
Yes. I would definitely choose the latter, because I think that's part of what maintains the character. I think we have like a 10% housing vacancy rate right now. So I like to explore that. What are we doing with those vacancies? Some of the exciting trends in urban planning is about rehabbing old structures and putting businesses, dense housing doesn't have to look dense. You can create structures that, or like rehab structures, and make them into multi-use, where you have both work and like a loft and a working area in the same building. So I think for me, it's I'd like to see what we have maintained and beautified and renewed. I think that's the smartest use of city money. I think it doesn't strain our infrastructure in the long term. I think if we want to continue to be fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative, then we need to make the best use of what we have. And then when we have done with that, then we can look at new structures, new development.
Do you have a Facebook page that people can follow you if they have additional questions, or they can view it for your thoughts? Just as, again, you posted a rather lengthy article this morning. Yeah,
Goodwin for Carrollton on Facebook. You can find me K. Dawn Goodwin. My phone number also 770-284-1096. That's 770-284-1096. Text me, call me. I want to hear what residents are thinking.
What do you think are the most important relationships for the city of Carrollton, and maybe in particular Ward 3?
As far as
any of the relationships, I guess when I say that, I'm thinking financially. The important people to keep in contact with, to get an idea of how the community's feeling about things. Who support a lot of jobs, maybe.
Well, right. Obviously, Tanner and Southwire are our major industries, and provide. They help our economy and employ our people, and of course are very important to the city. Those are important relationships. Equally important to me are the everyday citizens too, whose needs aren't always represented. An example of that, by the way, would be trying to get people who can safely walk on Highway 27 to get to essential shopping. So the city, engineers, planners, zoners are often thinking about how to move traffic as quickly and as efficiently from point A to point B, but that's not representing the needs of the pedestrian, of the person who lives there. We need traffic to move fast and efficiently, but we also need people to stay alive and safe. The needs of the residents are equally important to me.
Got about 2 minutes left in the program. This is a relatively new campaign. For everybody seeking this seat. Qualifying was just last month. Talking to potential constituents, is there a question that you were asked? Was there information you've been given that that maybe sparked up a new drive, something that you were interested in or concerned about now that you weren't aware of before?
Well, I think part of what I bring to the table is the perspective for moms raising kids. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years in Carroll County is raising children. And I've been talking to a lot of moms and finding out, okay, what are moms who are not, lower socioeconomic class, and what are their struggles in the city? For example, over at Bristol Lakes, talking to moms there about how we can make their lives better as far as improving the trash pickup. I really think it's sometimes it's the small fixes. Sometimes we often think that big mega fixes, big budget projects are what's needed to help, but often I really think it's just small quality of life upgrades, finding out where people struggle, and finding small ways to help them.
Don Goodwin, our guest on this morning's Community Voice program. Thank you for coming by. Good to meet you. Good to talk to you. We've had all 4 candidates on the show this week, so if you missed any of the candidates for Ward 3, we have our interviews with each of them on the News Talk 1330 Facebook page, also in podcast form on the newstalk1330.com website. Next week, I believe we're talking with candidates for the Ward 4 City Council seat. So you'll want to tune in Monday morning at 8:30. I believe Jason Marlowe might be our first guest Yeah, Monday morning, 8:30 here on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. Have a great weekend.